Have you ever spent your days trying to explain your intentions again and again, only to realize the other person never truly wanted to understand you in the first place? You spoke carefully. You spoke honestly. You repeated yourself with hope, but all they heard was their own version of your words. This is the story of a man who discovered that silence, not arguments, sometimes speaks louder and truer than anything the voice can shape. Once, in a peaceful village tucked between quiet forests and silver streams, lived a man named Elias Ward. Elias wasn't rich, wasn't heroic, wasn't known for great adventures, but he carried a rare gift. He crafted delicate instruments made of polished wood, shells, and thin rods of silver metal that produced calming melodies whenever the breeze passed through. People loved his craft, but some didn't love him. Living a few houses away was Edgar Pike, a man who believed that everything was a competition. Edgar owned the village's general store and saw Elias as a threat. Not because he made wind chimes, but because people walked past Edgar's store every time they came to buy from Elias. And in Edgar's mind, if people admired someone else's work, there must be a trick behind it. These chimes are overpriced. Edgar would shout in the market square. He charges double for simple strings and metal scraps. Elias.com by nature tried to explain. He told Edgar about the cost of the materials he collected from far-off places, the hours spent smoothing the wood, tuning the chimes so they sang rather than clanked. But Edgar never truly listened. He only nodded, smirked, and whispered to nearby ears. And like smoke rising from dry leaves, gossip spread faster than truth. Some began to doubt Elias, not because they believed Edgar, but because doubt always travels quicker than understanding. Elias kept trying, he explained, defended, and reasoned again, and again. But the more he spoke, the more his words were twisted. At night, Elias sat outside with unfinished chimes on his workbench. The forest wind gently played through the hanging shells, and he asked the night sky, why must a good heart keep proving itself? One chilly autumn morning, a traveling flute player came to the village. People gathered to hear him play. After the performance, Elias approached and asked quietly, how do you make people understand your intentions when they've already decided who you are? The flute player smiled kindly and said, if someone insists the river moves backward, will your words change the direction of the water in his mind? Elias paused and shook his head. No. Then perhaps, the musician said, placing his flute into its case, your voice is meant for creating, not convincing. And he walked away, leaving Elias with a strange and settling calm. From that day, Elias stopped explaining. At first, the lack of response made some villagers uneasy. But Elias did not lose his fire. He simply stopped giving it away. Each one had a clarity that felt like sunlight turned into sound. A family traveling through the village bought a chime. A week later, they returned with 3 friends who wanted their own. Soon, people from surrounding villages came, not because Elias had convinced them with explanations, but because his work carried something undeniable. Peace. One evening, Edgar's daughter fell gravely ill. The doctor advised constant airflow inside the house to keep the child cool. Edgar opened all the windows, but the creaking shutters made the child restless. Desperate, Edgar went to Elias and quietly asked for a wind chime, something soft, something soothing. Without hesitation, Elias handed him a chime made of the finest polished shells. Edgar reached for his coin pouch. Elias shook his head. Take it, he said softly. Some things aren't made for business. That night, as the gentle melody danced through the air and the child finally slept, Edgar stood at his window, listening to the calming tune. Not the silence of ego, but the silence of realization. Not once did Elias say, see, I told you. His silence had spoken for him. Days passed. Edgar returned. Not with excuses, not with pride, but with 3 simple words. I was wrong. Elias nodded with a smile, not to prove victory, but to acknowledge understanding. The villagers soon saw the change. Rumors faded like mist at sunrise. People began respecting Elias, not because he forced them to, but because silence revealed what explanations never could. Elias continued creating his wind, and one day, a little girl asked him, "Why do your chimes sound so happy?" Elias looked at the breeze fluttering the shells and said, "Because they sing for the wind, not for the ears that refuse to listen." The little girl giggled, and the chime answered with its soft, silver voice. Life became simpler, lighter. Elias learned that the need to be understood is a heavy burden, and letting go of it feels like finally exhaling. He discovered that peace isn't found in convincing others, but in understanding yourself. Sometimes, the most powerful reply is quiet. Sometimes, the greatest answer is calm. And sometimes, silence is not the absence of sound, but the presence of wisdom. If they've already judged you, your words can't unbuild the walls they've built. But when you stop trying to prove something to those who never cared to know the truth, you begin living for your own light, not for someone's shadow. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to subscribe to our channel, where every story is a journey toward discovery, peace, and hope. Until next time, keep your soul calm, keep your voice kind, and keep your inner melody playing softly, because not everyone needs to hear it for it to be beautiful.